Welcome everyone. I know it's 10:59, so I'm going to give everyone a few more moments to start joining, and then I'll get started with today's intro and a bit about Acelab. And for anyone who has not come to a webinar before, my name is Bo. So I work with Acelab as the Director of Growth and Architectural Relations. One of the things that I help to do is organize these webinars and other continuing education events. So feel free to reach out to me if you are, interested in learning more about Acelab, interested in learning more about sealant products, or have, some ideas or some needs for continuing education opportunities. All right, and it looks like we've got some folks already joining. So I'm going to go ahead and give everyone a quick little tour about Acelab. So we help to host these webinars, and we are really excited to bring you high performance sealant technology today with the group from Tower Sealants. So just a quick bit about Acelab. I'll give you a little rundown of our team and jump over to our platform, show you how to find Tower Sealants product information over there, and then we can get started with today's deep dive into these products. So a quick snapshot of our team. Acelab was founded by architects for architects. So I'm a former architectural designer myself as well. And really the goal of our team is to build tools and resources for the architectural community to be able to specify better products and, build a more sustainable and a more efficient future. So we were kind of, coming at this problem, which I know that many of us have experienced in practice, which is really just the ability to find your product information, to save, store, and organize on these product specs can feel a bit discordant. So Acelab's vision is to really be this one space where you can save, organize, and collaborate on your product information all in one place, all in one tab, viewing product information apples to apples, as opposed to having to view multiple different formats. So with that, I will jump over to our live site right over here. And if you haven't already made an account, super easy to do so. You can also sign up with Google. I'll go ahead and sign in. Once you sign in, you'll come back to your library dashboard. So you won't go to that homepage. You'll come back to this, more specific page about the work that you've been doing on Acelab. You can jump in quickly to the searches that you've been doing, your saved product library, as well as conversations and projects, which you can host directly on our site. So I will first just show you how you can easily find a manufacturer that you're looking for. So if you come to Acelab and you know who you want to look for, you can just go right to the search bar at the top, type in the name of the manufacturer you're looking for, and view their whole brand page on Acelab. So you can connect with them directly here, nest that under a project to keep everything organized. You can also view all of their products. You can save these to your projects right from this page. And then you can also open up these product pages to view some more information and data, as well as downloads. And then I'll quickly show you over in your library space. So as you're kind of starting to do those searches, find the manufacturers and the products that you're looking for, you'll be saving those, either to your projects or to more general locations. So if you want to start organizing your project portal, you can always jump over to my library, upload new projects here. You can also upload those right from a product page. If you're trying to save a product and you haven't uploaded a project, no big deal. You can always do that right from that portal. But uploading a new project is super simple. So it's only 4 questions. I'll go ahead and run through that right here. And this is pretty flexible, so it really just works as a way to organize your research. So whether you're doing more general research, trying to organize and aggregate your firm standards, or you're doing project-specific research, this project portal can work for multiple different formats. And then when you want to add additional information, I'll just jump under here, and you can see I've started to save products to this general research tab. So I have my Tower Sealants product saved here, and I can see that I've saved it for general research. Scrolling down, all of the products that I've saved are tagged with the projects that they're saved to. So when I'm nested under a project, this is super helpful. If I've tagged it for more than one project, I can get a high level information about where I've been using these products. And then jumping over to the project info tab. So while uploading projects is super simple, this also works as a place to really save and store and organize that project data. So you can upload documents, drawing files, renderings, include a description. And then in the next few weeks, we are also going to be releasing a fully collaborative team member function. So you'll be able to add your team members to these projects as well, and they'll be able to do everything that you can do on your Acelab project. All right. And then the one last thing I will mention here is right up here at the top. These are all of our searchable categories. So if you don't know the product that you're looking for, you can always hop into one of these categories here. Just go over to cladding. And some of these categories will have some additional sections underneath them. So if you're looking for cladding or cladding support systems, and then this other products tab hosts a lot of other products that we're uploading continuously. So this is just kind of a quick snapshot at one of those more guided searches using a product advisor. So I'll just quickly run through this to kind of show you an idea of what it's like, but they're very visual guided searches, so using diagrams and images whenever possible. We also ask for your project location, so we're making sure to show you the results that are available in your area, and ideally results that are, as local as possible. And then one thing I like to call out is if you ever see these question marks throughout the site, those are kind of additional tips about how that filter or that option might affect other things such as cost and performance. And then I'll just skip on through to the end here. We also ask for special requirements. So if you're looking specifically for like EPD products or fire resistant products, you'll have the ability to filter specifically for that. And then from this results page, scrolling down, we have this in a list view, so you can view a bit more information about the lines and the manufacturers. You can also pop this into a grid view to just be able to get a more visual overview. You can save your searches. You can also request support from Acelab's team. So if you want to chat with me, there's always this button right down here. If you get to this page and you, could use some additional support or just recommendations in kind of where to move forward, feel free to reach out to us anytime. And then, of course, you can save products from this page as well. So anytime you see that pin icon, that's your opportunity to save it, either without a project, to an existing project, or there's that option to add a new project as well. All right, so that is my quick rundown about Acelab. And then one more thing I'll mention while I'm here. So as I showed earlier, here's Tower Sealant's page on Acelab. You can connect with Joe, who's one of our speakers here today, right from this page. We'll also be polling you at the end of today's event. So if you're looking for follow-up information after the webinar, you can just answer yes on that poll, and we'll go ahead and set you up with a Tower Sealant's team over on your Acelab account. All right. So a few more logistical webinar things I want to mention is, I just saw someone already added something into the Q&A, but I did want to mention, please feel free to drop any questions into the Q&A. We will try to, pause throughout the presentations if something seems relevant, but we will mostly save those for the end. We'll have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer all of those questions. If your question doesn't get answered, then we will have a record of it and we'll follow up with you after the event. While I'm here, I'll answer Lee. So Lee says, can we use Acelab to assemble specifications for a project? So yes, you can. We are working on the actual export for a specification document. So that's something that is on our roadmap and in progress. But if that's something that you are looking to do more heavily, I'd love to talk with you, Lee, after this event, talk to you specifically about what your needs are in terms of assembling specifications and see how Acelab can best be of help. Right. And actually, while I'm here, I'm just going to type into the chat my email, just so everyone has it. I probably emailed you about this event, but yes, if you have any other questions about Acelab or you want to set up a quick demo to talk about your product research after this call, feel free to shoot me an email and do so. All right. So I believe that's it for me. I want to thank everyone again once more for joining. We really appreciate you coming here and learning about these products with us. And I always really enjoy hosting these events. And with that, I will hand it over to the team at Tower Sealants. So Joe, Matt, and Rob are joining us today with Tower Sealants. And I believe they're going to keep their video off just for bandwidth purposes, but I will let them go ahead and give a quick intro about their team and get started with today's talk.
Thank you, Bo. Let me get this. Do you mind enabling screen sharing?
Oh, yep, there you go. Okay, you should be set.
Okay, one moment. Sorry, I'm trying to get to play the slideshow. Can you see that?
I can see your screen.
Okay, there we go. We're good to
Yeah,
go.
there you go. Perfect.
Okay, thank you again. My name is Joe Dipiero. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Tower. With me is Rob Stannard, our Chief Quality Officer, and Matt Thoman, our VP of Sales and Marketing. I really appreciate your time this afternoon to talk about something that is very near and dear to our hearts, which is high performance sealant technology. We're going to be specifically speaking about our AU-1 Commercial Sealant. But, okay, sorry. Yeah, and like Bo said, we're going to try to get through this with some time in the end to answer any questions you have. So please just throw them in the chat and we'll try to tackle them. If there's something that we can get to as we're doing this presentation, then we'll try to do that as well. So today we'll be talking about, we'll give you a small introduction to Tower Sealants, a little bit of our history. We're going to talk about different sealant technologies, their roles, the choices you have in weatherization products. We're going to review the best practices when it comes to sealant application and joint design. And then we're going to dive a little deeper into the AU-1 Commercial Sealant, talk about the features and benefits, some of the differentiators in the applications, as well as the behaviors of the technology itself and the durability benefits.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is Matt, or good afternoon, depending where you are. As Joe mentioned, we want to spend just a quick minute to talk briefly about who Tower Sealants is, as many of you may not be familiar with us in the specification world. Tower Sealants was founded in 2006. We are a product of MD Building Products based out of Oklahoma City, family owned and run business, over 100 years old. And fun fact is MD was the first to introduce the caulk tube and the caulk gun as we know it today back in 1949. So while we're a relatively new company founded in 2006, I think one of the big takeaways is we are by no means new to the industry. Our founders and our management team have decades of experience from actually building caulk and sealant plants from the ground up to all sorts of manufacturing, air-free filling, and of course, the intricate knowledge of chemistry behind the scenes that differentiates our products and gives us the performance that is setting the bar in the weatherproofing space. Very focused on quality until recently, where we are branching out more into the commercial waterproofing space. Really, our niche has been serving the professional paint channel. You won't find us in a big box, a Lowe's or a Home Depot. We more so are in all of the professional paint stores. We private label, so many times you won't see Tower Sealants, but we're quite saturated across the country in all regions with all players in the private label market. And the differentiators, we really focus on quality. A DIY person goes into a big box and purchases a tube of caulk, and they use, on average, maybe half of it. And every 10 months, they go back and they buy another tube for another project. That's not our focus. Our focus is the person that is using sealant day in and day out, wants speed and efficiency in application, but also cares about not ever being called back to a job site for a product quality issue. So that's where we differentiated ourselves, and that's where we're also expanding into this commercial waterproofing space. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob, who's one of our founders of Tower Sealants, and again, responsible for all the formulations and quality here at Tower.
Well, these type of slides are always interesting, but we do an introduction. So I am Rob Stannard. My title here is Vice President of Chemical Technology and Chief Quality Officer. As you can tell, I get to write my own titles. Been with Tower from the beginning. I'm one of the original people. Before that, I was Vice President of Chemical Technology for Gardner Industries. That included sun coating, sealant technologies, and the asphalt company. More importantly, I was the technology manager for North America for UES and Dow Chemical. And in that role, I was responsible for emulsion polymers going into the sealant industry. And that before that, I'm going way back now, I apologize, but back all the way into the 80s, early 80s with USG Corporation. And I was again, member of technical staff there. And if you think about things like Durabond, DAP, they were all part of USG. So I've been making sealants essentially since 1983. More currently, Tower is very supportive of ASTM. And I've been with C24, which is the important committee for test methods for sealants since 1986. I am currently a member of the executive board for C24, and I am also the chairman of C2410, which is specification guides and predominantly things like ASTM C920 and ASTM C834, which are the dominant specifications and tests used. Before that, worked very hardly with the mold and mildew group, and I was a past chairman from that. Won some awards, whatever. But also with AMA, we worked with them and was the first vice president of the Wall Interface Council. That is now FGIA. Won some awards with USG and Carbide. But really what we wanted to do is, why would you listen to us? Do we actually know sealants? And I think we do. So let's move on. We mentioned that quality is critical for Tower, and that is something that we take extraordinarily seriously. We understand, as Matt was stating earlier, that, the professional is going to use that product, and he mentioned not callbacks, so forth, but maybe even just as important, they want it to look, feel, and apply the same way every time. So you really can't have any variations. We verify every batch that we make in real time. We look at things like extrusion. That's the way that we check viscosity. Typical people in the industry are using centipoise, which is basically taking a stick that's got a crossbar and spinning it in the sealant to get a number. Never seen that on a job site. So what we do is we do actual extrusions. We measure with the correct amount of shear how the product reacts coming off the tip of your gun. And so that allows us to actually see how it's going to react for you in the field. We do third-party testing on every claim that we make. So obviously we test internally, but then after that's done, we verify that through a third party, and that testing is available to anyone that asks for it. We check compatibility with the normal ASTM specifications, but we also look at 30 other substrates for every product that we make. One of the fun or the important things that we do is we vacuum fill and we vacuum mix. And why we do that is to remove all the air so you don't get what's either called run on, run out air pops, which always can cause issues in terms of if you do get an air pop, even if you replace it, that's a weak point in your joint in an area where you may have a failure. We're always verifying compatibility with coatings, and again, just need to be a consistent product.
Okay, so what makes a great commercial construction sealant? We understand there's tons of choices in brand as well as technology, and there's many choices that work for many different applications, but we think there's definitely a best choice for each application. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit. The sealant is a liquid or a paste that would cure and harden, forming a barrier protecting against gas and liquid, usually made from flexible materials. Sorry. Can someone please turn their mic off? Okay, this is not necessarily gospel, but we refer to as C834 compliant products. That would be the latex standard testing method as a caulk, while the ASTM C920 compliant products we refer to as sealants. C920 is the elastomeric test. This is a lot more rigorous, and these would be normally what you refer to as the exterior sealants used for cladding, expansion joints, and harsher environments that see a lot more expansion and contraction. Why choose one sealant over the other? Well, I mean, you can use a C920 sealant for, molding in a indoor, but it might be overkill. The real thing is to look at the different technologies versus your application. When you're looking at, your interior versus exterior, the environment of that exterior. Sometimes you have to consider the substrates, that whether that is chemically compatible, as well as the type of coating, if it goes under, or if it's going to be, or the sealant is going to be applied to the paint or coating, as well as your cosmetic requirements. Along those same lines, some common reasons sealants fail are a user application error or surface prep error. Sometimes folks are actually choosing the wrong sealant for that application, and that will just cause mechanical failure if it's the high movement joint and maybe a low performance sealant. Maybe using a, water-based sealant in below grade or where you'd see ponding water. I already touched on the incompatible substrate materials chemically with some of the sealant technologies. And then there's some reversion on polyurethanes. We're going to get into a little bit of that later. Just to give you all an idea, these are all the different stresses on a moving expansion joint. Now, this is kind of why the sealant is tested with so much scrutiny, that there's a lot to consider here. Now, for simplicity purposes, we're only going to be talking about expansion and contraction today. So looking at this diagram, the middle joint is a perfectly well-designed expansion joint. We got a 2-inch gap. That's the maximum for industry standard, definitely for AU-1. As you see, as it's going from cold to hot on the left to the right side, when you go, the substrates are heated up, they expand, causing that joint to compress. The middle joint, as you can see, is an hourglass shape. That is to give it room to flatten out flush as the substrates are expanding and the joint compresses. If you started out with a flattened joint, then as the substrates expand and it compresses, you'd actually get a buckling or push out. I mean, we would just call that joint failure, right? And then as it cools down, you see the substrate stretching out. That hourglass shape gives you that perfect elongation opportunity.
Another key part of that too is if the sealant doesn't have any room to compress, you're also putting additional stress on the substrate where the sealant's coming into contact with the substrate. And even if it's a low modulus sealant, it's going to be more likely to crack or damage the edges of the substrate. So that's the importance of, regardless of brand or type of sealant, to have that specified hourglass shape.
So we're going to take a little bit of time and talk about some different chemistries. So latex vinyls and basic acrylics, these are the type of products you find DIYers or basic construction. So they cure by evaporation of water, basic residential or consumer use. They are used for weather sealing. They are superior for painting. They're easy to use and clean. Obviously, you can, while the products are wet or before they cure, you can clean with soap and water. And that eliminates the need for VOC/solvents during cleaning. Typically, these products have low odor and they have reasonable, it says good, but reasonable adhesion to common construction substrates. Can't put them underwater. They really are not designed for dynamic joint movement. And then obviously you cannot put these products in high heat applications. So we're going to go ahead and talk about silicones. Now silicones, there are really a number of different types, but we talk about neutral, acid, and chemical cure, right? So neutral and acetoxy cure through a reaction with water. They pull moisture out of the air to react. Chemical cure are the type that need activators and a separate catalyst. They have a lot of uses. The primary uses are for electronics, industrial gaskets, obviously construction. They shine in an area called structural glazing, and in general construction, they are used. They're water resistant, they're durable and flexible. They often are heat resistant, and they have excellent adhesion to glass. One of the misnomers there is that people think that you can use these products underwater, and not all silicones are designed for water immersion. Limitations. We all know that paint will not adhere to silicone. So if you're going to coat your building after the fact, that causes some significant issues. Tear resistance is a problem with silicones. And what I mean by that is if you get a nick in it. One of the examples that I use that people may have seen, if you've ever seen a building like eaves and the silicone sealant is going down towards the bottom and it's hit with a weed whacker, you actually will see that crack over a very short period of time propagate up all the way through. There's really nothing that stops it. When you look at the acidic the acetoxys, you will find that they have very poor compatibility with typical cements. They absolutely require a primer. People often don't do that, and you'll have substrate failure at the interface, and the bond will break. We also, not just cement, but it also can attack other substrates, metals, and cause corrosion. One of the issues it also has, there are often oils, whether it be silicone oil or now hydrocarbon oil added as extenders, and these will bleed into the substrates and cause blooms. And just if it rains or the area gets wet, it gives a very strange look to the building that's not usually acceptable. One of the biggest ones with coming up now are the solvents required for cleanup. While they all meet VOCs, or at least most do, the regulations from California, we are hearing that California is looking at what's called whole job or total job VOCs, which will include the solvents for cleanup. And that's being driven by the fact that they're finding that significantly more VOCs are delivered during the cleanup process than the application. Also, much of the silicones have odor issues, particularly the acetoxys that often gets used in things like bathrooms. That odor is unacceptable for most consumers. Polyurethanes are an interesting product. They cure, again, by a reaction with moisture from the air. They have a lot of uses as well. Automotive, industrial, parking, sidewalks, don't need to go through, but one of the biggest one is tilt-ups. They have excellent tear resistance. The tears do not propagate, and that's an important property. Also, they have very good initial adhesion, and adhesion is also critical. And many of them are great for continuous water immersion. Matter of fact, I love these products when you're making adhesives for things like ponds or where you're stacking stones and you're holding water in. Urethanes are a great choice. There are some limitations, of course. Shelf life can be short. UV resistance is the #1 issue with polyurethanes, and we'll talk more and have some slides about that later. Paint compatibility is often an issue. While you can paint these products, the plasticizers or oils that they put in to make them flexible will leach into the paint and either change the color or the gloss, which makes the joints extremely noticeable, but also allows areas where you get growth from mold and mildew. They're extremely tacky, difficult to tool. They do use a lot of solvents in these formulations. In particular, they do contain isocyanates, and many of the plasticizers are phthalate based, which are not friendly in this environment. Their phthalates are part of the red lists. Has to be cleaned with solvents, as I stated, that's an issue. And anytime ASTM has to create a word for a failure of a specific sealant, that's not good. We included in the definitions of where we keep all the definitions for sealants in ASTM 717 the word reversion. And that basically means that the polyurethane will go back or revert to its original wet state when exposed to certain conditions, including UV. Hybrids are trying to bring the best of urethanes and silicones together. Typically, they do cure by a reaction with moisture. They can have high solids. They do build strength. They have reasonable adhesion. Water resistance is usually good, and many of them can again be used below grade. A lot of times they're used with windows and doors. We do see them in roofing and in kitchens as well. Applications are interior and exterior. Durable, flexible, good adhesion to glass. They are paintable, but have much of the same issues that happen with urethanes. So they definitely can cause discoloration of the paint, or what we call shiners, which is a change in gloss, which makes the joint very noticeable. They do not contain isocyanates, which is a positive, and they are low odor. Shelf life is an issue. Some have poor UV resistance. They are, again, difficult to tool. I believe all, if not most, if not all, contain phthalates for their plasticizer. That is a limitation, which again can cause the paint compatibility issues. They have an interesting, there are low quality and high quality as with everything else, but with hybrids, it's extremely noticeable. So to get good quality, you do have to spend some money. AU-1, it's our acrylic urethane. Now it does cure by evaporation. It has excellent adhesion to common building substrates. It is currently used in residential and commercial, weather sealing, waterproofing, and we have focused here with tilt-ups and window and door installation. Long-term durability and UV resistance, superior paintability, easy to application. And one of the things that you can clean this product from your tools and so forth with water and soap until it cures. Once it cures, it becomes obviously very difficult to remove, and water does not touch it. Low VOC, no odor issues. Again, limitations, as all products do. We don't want to be water immersion. We don't want to do structural. So what we mean by that in high rises, we don't want to be the only product holding the glass into the structure. We don't want to be below grade. And there often is an increased initial cure time, and that will depend upon the joint type, size, and weather conditions.
So talking a little bit about the importance of keeping water out of a building. Obviously, sealants are multi-purpose. They're designed to keep air, debris, and light out as well. But the main area of focus is, of course, weatherproofing or keeping a building dry. Of course, if water is seeping into a building, a whole array of issues that can pop up from structural damage, fire hazards with electrical systems, health concerns as you start to grow mold and mildew, create stains and unsightly issues. And then slips, trips, falls, other issues where in the extreme where you would have water coming in and creating wet spots where you otherwise wouldn't expect it. So back to where Joe had showed earlier about a joint, AU-1 can span gaps up to 2 inches, and where we had discussed that hourglass shape. The one thing that is extremely beneficial, as we talked to Rob mentioned about the ease and application and speed of application of AU-1, this is a major difference from all the other technologies out there. With the other technologies, when you apply a backer rod as shown in this diagram, and then you apply or gun the sealant into the space, after you place it in, you then need to either tool or what's sometimes referred to as spoon it into this concave shape on the outside so you can get that appropriate expansion and contraction as designed. With AU-1, that's simplified. You put the backer rod in, you gun the sealant in, again, not sticky or stringy, very easy to work with. You simply strike the sealant flat to the edges of the substrate, and as it goes through its natural evaporative cure process, it will concave itself to that perfect hourglass shape each and every time. So number one, it's a quicker process. Number two, it's almost a dummy proof process because you can't inadvertently mess up the hourglass shape by not having the concave correct, because it'll do it for itself for you each time. Again, pretty common with all substrates and sealants, but recommended joint width to depth ratio is typically 2 to 1. For every inch of width, half of that of depth, with a minimum for us around 3/8 of an inch. That will vary slightly by manufacturer to manufacturer, but a good thing to keep in mind is most all types of sealants and manufacturers recommend a 2 to 1 or very close to 2 to 1 ratio.
We do want to talk a little bit about specifications as well. So this product is tested to ASTM C920 class 25 and is passed for what's called 50% total joint movement. In other words, plus or minus 25%. And obviously meets the lower specs as well, the 834. We do mention the federal spec TTS 00230C. I do that because people ask for it, but the reality is it's a dead spec and has been taken over by C920. But in construction, these things kind of hang on for a long time. We meet the physical requirements of AMA 808.3, and why I say physical requirements, we are not a member of AMA. And so we can't make the claim that it meets the non-physical part, the being the member. But in terms of all the testing, we've passed it, and by third party as well. We do a thing called TCB SAT 30. But really what that means is we don't look at just the 3 ASTM substrates, which are important, which is glass, aluminum, and cement. We actually look at 30 other common substrates, and within that, verify that we have adhesion and compatibility with pretty much anything you're going to run into. Beyond that, you see the test fence there. We actually checked all 30 substrates for a 2-year period with peel adhesion, not just movement, but to make sure that we maintained adhesion. We also did that with competitive products, and there'll be some interesting information on that later. But the idea was to look at the adhesion initially at 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, and 2 years to see what was actually happening over time. You know, we all talk about durability, but this is a test that helps show what really is happening to your adhesion over time. Go ahead. So what does class 25 mean? You know, when we talk about class 25, we mentioned just then plus or minus 25%, 50% movement capability. But remember that this product has almost 1,000% elongation. That's clearly significantly more than 25%. Well, ASTM is a C920 is a specific test. You have a lot of different classes, 12.5, 25, 35, and 50. It's very rigorous. It is not real world. You know, when you think about the 25% movement, one of the times that we're making that product move, we're actually shooting liquid nitrogen on it. That's not something that happens in the real world, but it is a great differentiator for these classes. You need, within this, for applications that we're discussing, class 25 should meet all the expansion joint requirements that you'll ever need. You can calculate the dynamic movement of the substrates, but we do know that there are a lot of products out there that are claiming 35 or 50, and they basically take their 25% movement, add a bunch of extra plasticizer oil, and they achieve that. But what they give up is strength and adhesion, which we think are important as well.
So to follow up on what Rob was just talking about with all the ASTM testing, as Rob's a member that sets the standard for that with ASTM, and the fact that we've expanded to 30 common building substrates, because not all buildings put up are simply block glass and aluminum, or maybe they are with paint on top of them. We go through and we test all the different materials. So we took 45 of the leading competitors that are specified in the industry today, 30 different substrates. We put them out on the test fence, and then we did peel adhesions initially, after 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, and maintained a control as well. So we did over 18,000 peel adhesions over a period of 2 years. And that's where we're excited to share the results as to the difference with AU-1 versus the competition. So this slide tells the first part of the story, but not the important part. This is the 30 different substrates and the peel adhesion pounds per linear inch with each of those products. And the 3 bar charts are the concrete block, the glass, and the aluminum. And you can see if you look at AU-1, the second one in, we're right around 30 to 35 pounds, depending on the substrate. And the little red line at the bottom, if you can see it, it's thin. That's a 5. That's the ASTM standard, or what the industry standard is for passing a peel adhesion. It's 5 pounds per linear inch. So the takeaway here, no matter which product that you would choose, you apply it, and at the time of application, it's going to do great regardless of the product or the substrate. The story we want to tell, though, this chart shows not just the 3 ASTM, but all 30 substrates we used. And our purpose here, we listed a few, but it wasn't to call out any competitor, but we thought it'd give it a little bit more skin in the game than just saying polyurethane or hybrid. We didn't test a third-party one from overseas that's unknown. These are some of the popular brand names. And instead of the bar charts here being the different types of substrates, this is time. Dark gray is initial, light gray is after a year, and the important one to look at is the red bar chart, which is after 2 years of time. You see AU-1 all the way on the left, and you can see 1 or 2 other competitors, or 3 competitors over all the substrates tested. They had an average higher peel strength initially. And so you'd say, okay, well, that's a better product. Then you start adding the element of time. And this goes back to what Rob was talking about, the fact that our formulas are plasticizer free, which none of the other formulas out there in the market tested can say that. The plasticizer migrates or leaches out of all those other products. Their products are less flexible over a period of time, lose adhesion, causes issues with, again, bleeding the plasticizer into the substrates and causing shiny spots and mold and mildew. But just going back to the performance of the product, you can see after 2 years, we're leveling out and continue to level out even a longer period of time that's not shown here, whereas everything else starts degrading at a much faster pace. So the purpose of the sealant is to not only do its job at the time of application, which all sealants should do, but when you add in the element of time and of the elements being outside in harsh conditions, we're going to outperform anything that's on the market today.
Thanks, Matt. So when we say that you degrade over time, you need to be able to understand why. And so this is a durability test, ASTM C1519. A xenon arc is just an artificial sun, essentially. And this is 5 cycles, 4,000 hours. What I really, when you look at this, this tells you what's going on with the urethanes. They simply cannot handle extended UV. And what this does is it adds movement while you're cycling it through UV. And the polyurethane essentially fell apart. You can look at the AU-1 and you do see a little bit of wrinkle, but that's it. And so when you compare those 2 chemistries, there's no doubt which one is more durable. And it's not the one people would expect. This is actually even more interesting. So this substrate is glass, and you can see that you're actually getting UV light from one side, and we went to run cycles, and after a single cycle, only 672 hours, the area where the UV was hitting the urethane simply let go. There was no adhesion left whatsoever. The bead doesn't look bad yet. It hasn't got that degradation that you saw on the previous slide, but it's no longer a sealant. It's just a filler or a gasket. AU-1 clearly looks brand new and maintained that for multiple cycles. This is one of my favorite slides. It's simply a little plaque of the AU-1 versus a standard polyurethane. And we ran the polyurethane for a little over 2,000 hours and stopped because, frankly, we were worried we wouldn't have anything left to show. We continued to run our product for over 6,000 hours. And this is under fluorescent UV. again, a different type of light, but again, used in the industry to mimic sunlight. The interesting thing about all three of the tests you've just looked at, they are not tower sealants run tests. These are tests where the materials were given to a third party and the third party did the testing.
Thanks, Rob. We're going to run over a little bit of the AU-1 installation features and applications. As you can see, it's a little bit of a different product, so we really want to hit on some of this. We're seeing a ton of application uses for AU-1. This goes from everywhere from, expansion joints like we talk about to stucco, but mainly what we want to talk about today is the restoration, commercial restoration folks, tilt wall joints. That includes precast, any of the expansion joints on concrete panels, as well as window frames. That's any substrate there. So the surface prep is obviously very key to this. I like to say our sealant sticks very well. It also sticks very well to dirt. So, you got to make sure what you have is clean, oil-free, and as you know, this is a waterborne product, so dry. Also, this is a waterborne product, so this needs to be above freezing. We don't want the high of the day to be 33 degrees. We want to at least to get a chance to skin over. So a good rule of thumb is 40 degrees and rising. There's also you shouldn't be applying this on anything that exceeds 140 degrees. I think that goes with every sealant. Also be aware of extreme weather upcoming. You don't want to apply this right before a heavy rain. Like I said, we need to get a chance to skin over. We've already touched on, we don't do below grade, high traffic areas, or anywhere water ponding may occur. So standard installation, you want a backer rod in a U-shaped joint or bond breaker tape on a window fillet to prevent 3-point adhesion. As Matt had alluded to, just strike the joint flat. Very easy application when it comes to this. You just gun it in, strike it flat with a knife. Before it cures, make sure before it cures to wipe it clean, but just rag and water, maybe soap if necessary. You can, tool a fillet joint on a window, but another rule of thumb here is the cure time. So 15 minutes tooling, we're tack free in about 30 minutes, and you could paint with most paints after 6 to 8 hours. Please note that, yes, this is going to vary. There's from temperature as well as humidity. It is definitely noteworthy that all of our pails are actually resealable and reusable. You cannot say this about any kind of reactive technology. If you open up that pail, if you don't use it, it kind of turns into a boat anchor after a while. So, just quickly going over some of these benefits. Water-based, that means, soap and water cleanup, no solvents required. As Rob had said, this job site VOC, total job site VOC is getting to be a little more under scrutiny here, and this is really going to help you out. We're a single component, makes application very easy, no mixing, reduced errors, and reduced application time as well as just being clean when it comes to the prep of the sealant. We have no plasticizers, which means best durability, best paintability, and no phthalates. And then we are VOC compliant in all 50 states. I think Rob has a little bit to elaborate on that.
The focus for VOCs for us was to be compliant with both squamid and carb, because depending upon the size of the container, you're controlled by one or the other. So we're definitely both. We're less than 50 grams per liter, even though polyurethanes and hybrid and others are allowed up to 250 per squamid. The two types, oxime and acetoxy, are used. I'm trying to remind myself. Yes. So silicone producers really have had, particularly with the oximes, struggled to keep things at 3% or lower, whereas our current product is 1.5% or less at all times. And when you look at the acetoxy, while it's not a VOC, you are off-gassing acidic acid, which causes a number of issues. We also wanted to talk about things like polyurethanes. We talk about MDI, TDI, which are the chemicals that are used to manufacture it. And even if they're claim 100% consumption by the time it gets to the end user, the people manufacturing these products are constantly exposed to these materials. And they do cause respiratory issues, dermatitis with the skin exposure. Acrylic is predominantly off-gassing water, which is harmless. And we've talked to death about the total job site VOC, so we'll let that one go.
It's a good call.
So the short summary in easier to read bullet points, why AU-1? Again, Rob just went through and Joe just went through from the time it's manufactured to the actual product itself to the overall solvents and VOCs needed on the job site. All are reduced, making a much greener and safer environment. AU-1 is a lot faster and easier to apply for the initial installer, which saves labor time. And probably the most important one, its overall superior durability when you add in the elements and you add in time. AU-1 will outlast and outperform other technologies that are out there today. The other things we typically don't call out as highlights, but we have the bullet on here as well. With the recent supply chain challenges, we are also in stock, always have been. So if you have a project, there's no need to have it on hold while you wait for sealant to become available. And from a cost perspective, we don't have this anywhere on there, but we are almost always more affordable than any of those other technologies we've talked about as well. So those are the benefits and reasons to choose AU-1 on upcoming jobs.
All right, well, thanks everyone. I think we have left enough time for some questions.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. That was really informative. And yeah, we have a few questions already in the Q&A. So I'll just start reading out some and y'all can go ahead and start answering. First, I just want to share this note from Bonnie, who says thank you for your service to chemistry and that their son is a chemist. And then Jill asks, I think maybe we covered some of this, but about VOC emissions and content testing for rating systems, specifically are CDPH V11 or V12 compliance information available, or SCAQMD or CARB. So yeah, if we didn't cover any of that, feel free to go ahead and talk on that a bit.
I think we touched base on it. We work closely with both SQUAMID and CARB. As a matter of fact, I've testified at CARB for sealants, and we are well below the minimum or the requirements for both of those. We will always be in compliance. We do reach out and look at upcoming changes. So if there are ever changes, we're going to be ahead of that. We're not going to have to react after it's done. So if there's a change, we will go ahead and do that. Haven't really done a lot with the CDPH, to be honest with you. Our focus has been SQUAMID and CARB on VOCs.
All right. Before we move on to the next one, just wanted to mention, if you didn't see already, I launched the poll for follow-up information. So go ahead and answer that if you would like some follow-up information from Tower Sealant's team, and we'll work on getting you the product literature, sample certifications, whatever you're requesting. Oh, and one more thing, if you want to raise your hand, you can ask a question out loud, and I promise it's not scary and you don't have to turn your camera on. So if anyone has a question that feels difficult to type out, feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
Hey, Bo, can I cut in 1 second? I also want to respond to the first individual. I want to thank them very much for their comment and tell them that, go ahead and tell your, I believe it was your son, that chemistry has been an amazing career for me. And in 40 years in the industry, I've never had to have a resume. And so while I have one, if you focus on it and, you know, really find your niche, chemistry will take care of you for your entire life. So thank you for your comment.
Cool. All right, looks like that might be the same Bonnie who asks, how do these strong adhesions affect the ability to replace the joint at some future date for maintenance, for example?
So if you aren't a chemist, you get stuck selling sealant. So stay in school, kids. Yeah, great question. If you have maintenance issues, you simply, like you would with a lot of the other stuff, you can cut it out. And again, unlike silicones, that silicone doesn't stick to even itself with silicone that have a much more involved mechanical removal process. As long as you cut it out and the surface is clean and free of dirt and debris, you can simply reapply. But again, you're going to find yourselves with several decades in between, so you'll be good to go.
Yeah, we definitely do not recommend the need to grind the joint like you would have to do with a silicone to get it completely off. Again, cut it back, make sure it's stable, and you should be able to apply again.
All right, and what about shelf life?
2 years. 2 years, which is certainly better than either usually the 6 months to 12 months found for most other reactive or moisture cured chemistries. And again, as Joe mentioned, if you're pulling out of pails, you can put the lid back on and you're going to be good to reuse later in the day, the week, whenever, as opposed to the other chemistries. Once you expose to moisture, you're pretty much done.
Do AU-1 sealants come in various colors?
13 different colors at the moment. We have in 10-ounce cartridges for more of the window door installation, but
Clear is
for
included there.
Yep, clear for the waterproofing space, 20-ounce sausages in both 2 and 5 gallon pails.
Awesome.
And those can be found towersealants.com. We have a color chart, or we could certainly mail out physical color charts if anybody would like one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was gonna mention, if you're looking for a color chart, yeah, you can go ahead and answer samples on the poll. And yeah, Tower Sealants team will follow up with you and get you that info. Let's see, Tom asks, no water ponding or below grade. Would this be a problem under door sills, possible water?
Yeah, great question, Tom. Yeah, certainly not a problem under door sills where water could sit or pond. And the reason we say that is, again, we want to very realistically and accurately call out certainly all the things we do really well, but where there are limitations. And being a water-based product, if it's sitting in ponding water, it's going to get soft. The sealant's not going to fail, so to speak, but it's going to remain soft. And so if you think about a sidewalk where you have large joints or anywhere on the ground that isn't on a perimeter up against the wall, as that sealant would be soft and somebody comes along what's typically called the high heel test, it could puncture or pierce that sealant easily and cause a broken ankle. And so that's why it's not the best choice. But for the bottom of a windowsill, yeah, absolutely. We do window door installations all the time and have perfect success. And one of the main issues with window installations is oftentimes you'll see 2 black streaks coming down of the building on either corner. And again, that goes back to plasticizer. There's plasticizer in the sealant. It migrates out, it rains, hits the window, hits the wall, and that plasticizer runs down, usually in the least point of least resistance, which is in the corners of the window, causes dirt, mold, mildew pickup, and that's where you get that black or green streaking. That is chemically impossible with AU-1 because of the lack of plasticizer. It's a good question.
Great. Okay, looks like that was our last one for now, but we've got 2 more minutes. So if anyone has a last minute question, feel free to let us know now. If not, if you have follow-up questions, you can head on over to Tower Sealants page on Acelab and connect with them there anytime. Shoot me an email at bo@acelab. I believe I sent that in the chat for you all. And there's also, let's see, just 2 more minutes left. Yeah, so I'll still leave this poll up for 1 more second and can go ahead and answer there if you would like follow-up information. There will also be 1 question when we leave this webinar, just so everyone knows, asking for a project name. So if you didn't request follow-up info, just go ahead and skip that. If you did and you indicated that it's for an active project, it would be super helpful for us if you can let us know that project name just for our records. But yeah, just wanted to give you all the heads up about that question. All right, looks like we don't have any other questions as of yet. So I just want to thank everyone one more time for joining us today, and thank you to the whole Tower Sealants team for today's presentation. I definitely learned a ton about sealants. And yeah, if anyone, of course, has follow-up questions, feel free to let us know and we will get back to you.
Thanks, everyone. We really appreciate it. And yeah, if you have anything else, you could just reach us on the website or.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bo.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.